Yes, folks, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. This weekend's grand opening of Parlay Restaurants and Sports, located in Jing'an, Shanghai, your new favorite spot for barbecue, burgers, and so much more. Come out to watch all your favorite sporting events. Enjoy brunches weekends starting at 11 on our terrace. Test your skill at darts, pool, and golden tea, an icon bar classic. 9 beers on draft, the freshest barbecue cooked daily, and so much more. This Saturday, starting at 5 p.m., followed by our first brunch Sunday at 11. Parlay, we have you covered from kickoff to last call.
You flipped the conversation into vanishing mode and then took 2 screenshots of a blank page. Took 2 screenshots of a blank page. Took 2 screenshots of a blank page. I was saying hadn't been weird up till that point, but who was watching? Why was someone watching? Thing is, sometimes you forgive the unforgivable. If you love someone, you're supposed to love everyone. So there's not been that's unforgiven, which is problematic, to say the least. The energy running through me from the night was coming from another place, was coming from another place. We are not people, we are not individuals, we are socially constructed. It wasn't me that whipped me like a whip, through fields past drum circles. It wasn't me that did that. You all did that. Thank you. Thank you in every language that you spoke to me, and thank you in English, thank you in Thai, thank you in Sichuan dialect. If you're making music for yourself, you ain't making music, you're making a mess. You're making a mess. And when that voice in your sentence, when does he get off at talking to me like that? Question your own guts and why it's siding with me. Question your own gut and why it's siding with me. Question your own gut. It's siding with me. Come on. Fucking cops a fucking key. No more swearing. Bells ring out across the city. The chanting hums across the city. And Wes's voice rings out across the city. We all lie to each other on the streets below. We all lie to each other. Beautiful lies about love and not much else. No word has ever come out of your mouth that wasn't flirting. letters. Go away from my window, leave at your own chosen speed. I'm not the one you want, babe. I'm not the one you need. Say you're looking for someone, never weak but always strong, to protect you and defend you, whether you are right or wrong. Somebody who would die for you and more. It ain't me, babe.
Hello everyone, Craig here. Welcome to a brand new season of Tell Craig Your Story podcast. I've had an amazing holiday. I went to Europe for 3 weeks, had a fantastic time. Went to Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, Poland. I got to see Metallica. Also, we have the competition for the brand new theme song for Tell Craig Your Story. So we've had the amazing Yanran, who has been at the start of all the podcasts for 2 years, and she's doing so good for herself now in China. And you can listen to our episode of the podcast that I did way back with Yanran in 2020. It's actually episode 5. But with the new season up and coming, we've decided to have a new theme song. And we want you or your band to make it. Now, the rules are no longer than a minute, MP3 format, and you must mention Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Now, the winners will receive 1,000 UN and will be played at the start of every episode. Entry closes on August the 16th, and you need to send it to me via a direct message on WeChat, or you can send it through to my email, cjmaguire@hotmail.com. All right, let's get to the start of the podcast. For the brand new season, episode 150, we have from England, Will Kemp. Now, Will went to the Edinburgh University and he participated in the Edinburgh Festival. Now, this is where he was involved with art and music. He formed the band Waidiren. Now, he's also done recordings and music videos at the Shrine in Shanghai. And what I like about Waidiren, I mean, when they get up on stage, it's very intense and they have a lot of energy on stage. Now, Will is currently living in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and he's just about to make an announcement of the Dirty Fingers Asia tour. And it's also going to be featuring Shanghai bands MuMuMu and Will's band Waidiren. For more information, you can go to their website or their WeChat, and the details will be in the description. And the track that you heard at the start of the podcast was called Vanishing Messages. But before we go, please go to our website. We're at Podbean. Tell Craig Your Story at podbean.com. We have a link tree there which tells you where Tell Craig Your Story podcast is streaming. We are on all the major streaming services. We're really going to focus this year on our YouTube account. Make sure you're subscribing and liking to get all the latest updates, and all of our videos as of today will be translated into Chinese as well. And we also have WeChat and little red book for our Chinese listeners and VK for our Russian listeners at Tell Craig Your Story. All right, here we go. This is my chat with Will on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Hi, Will. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing good. Like I said before, just come back from a very relaxing European trip, first time. So straight off, Will, you've got a few announcements to make from some upcoming shows.
It's summer holidays at the universities and the schools, and I know a lot of your listeners are younger Chinese people who speak English. So by the time this has gone out, we're going to have Dirty Fingers doing 3 shows in Chiang Mai, 7th, 8th and 9th of August. We've got my band Waidiren doing a couple of shows. We've got MuMuMu, our mutual friends, are playing. And then there's a reggae band coming from Yanran, like an ethnic minority reggae band coming at the end of the month. And we're just trying to get a flow of creative people coming from Shanghai each August as a little bit like the Edinburgh Festival or something, just anyone who wants to come can talk to us and we'll help them set up with venues, because it's so difficult to make art in Shanghai. So, yeah, we're just trying to explore ways that people can find a voice, get heard overseas, that kind of thing.
Why do you think it's hard for bands in Shanghai to make a name for themselves? Obviously with the COVID, it's starting to shut down venues, but in your opinion, why do you think that?
Because it's an interesting question, right? I mean, if you look at the Chinese scene, which is where my head's always at, everyone's in Beijing or in a few other cities. So the primary labels are all in Beijing. You've got like Chinese football have a label down in Wuhan, and there's some nice people in Kunming, there's stuff in Guangzhou. But weirdly, until like last year, I literally didn't know of an indie label in a country with 5 times in a city with 5 times the population of Scotland, which is idiotic. To my knowledge, there is one professional working indie band in the whole of Shanghai. It's Fingers. That, to my knowledge, they're the only ones where they all make a living from.
Right.
But some of that is like because it's easier to run a media business if you're close to the government up in Beijing. And also just Shanghai redeveloped later. There was like a different history, and it wasn't until the 1990s that Pudong happens and like that Shanghai catches up. It was intentionally kind of done after Beijing.
And that's where we met, Will.
Yeah.
We met through the Shanghai music scene.
I remember you telling me stories when I first arrived. You knew Josh at that point, so you got here before I did.
Yes.
I think of it. My head is in Shanghai most of the time.
Yeah, that was the first time that I met Josh. The 1st of January 2019. I quit my job and moved to Shanghai and met him on the same day.
How many bands are left from back then at this point?
Maybe Chimera Cole.
Obviously Fingers and a lot of the Chinese bands. I'll be honest, the reason I started a band with Chinese guys was I wanted a band that lasted more than a year.
Right.
Yes. And that was before COVID, I thought that. When we got to COVID and we lost everybody, I do think as a musician you have to be practical about, like, your organisation. Like, I loved getting drunk at a Loose Booty show, but expecting 10 people to kind of hover there in stasis in their work lives. It was like, this is a sick party. I'm not sure if this is a band. Because the guys I work with in Waidiren are like people who have serious jobs and work full time and have come to Shanghai to work. And like, if we can make this art to the point where it generates money, we don't have to go to work.
Yeah, that's right.
So in the end, what happened was because I don't have a Chinese passport, so approving shows for us is more difficult.
Yes.
Costs more, takes longer, people look at you funny, etc. This, that, and the third. It's fine. I actually don't have a problem with the approval system. It's like different countries, different contexts. The CIA is a real thing, money exists, and things would happen. So I actually don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with it costing more. But what I ended up deciding was that I couldn't spend all my time on music in Shanghai. Where could I go where I could be of service to the Chinese music scene?
Yes.
And Chiang Mai is a lot like Dali was 20 years ago. It's like it's a good place to drop out to come, work, study. Visa policies. Like Chinese people can come here for like 60 days on no visa now. And the flights aren't that much.
We're jumping ahead, but like, what was your decision to move to Thailand? And how long have you lived there now?
I've been here almost a year. My decision to move here is what you would call a combination of I'd worked 2 years in the tech industry in a translation team where every single white person on the team was on Ritalin because it was the only way to do the job. As the economy has gone and GPT came in as well,
yes.
they were expecting us to translate 5,000 words of narrative text a day that made me cry. It's like, and I mean like because it was well written, and so you were constantly given good work and being forced to put it out badly, and so it's emotionally battering. And at the same time, I was also getting divorced. So, you know, at that point, it's like, maybe go and move the energy around a bit and just...
Yeah. And had you been to Thailand before? And was it always a conscious decision to, okay, I've had enough of China, let's move to Thailand?
I first came out here when I was living in Chongqing, and my Canadian friend's wife was from here. And they introduced people here. But then obviously we all get stuck in China for 3 years. And
yes.
I'm a translator. I translate Chinese to English. I'm working on some film projects. And so the standard of translation of Chinese into English is, the technical term is absolute fucking dog shit. It's awful. It's dire. Penguin put out a translation of Wang Shao Boards the Golden Age recently, which has one of the funniest opening paragraphs you'll ever read. It's this long kind of Cultural Revolution story about I was assigned to this base and she was assigned to this base. And at the end of the story, the thing, he goes, and she would come down to my base occasionally and talk to me about the problem of her being poor shit, which means a worn out shoe, which is a horrible sexist slur. And in the publication of that, they put that and then a footnote explaining what it meant. It's like, no, she came down the hill to talk to me about the problem of her being a massive slag.
Right.
Translate it into the equivalent word.
Yes.
The problem is that most people doing translation have been to university, have never lived in China, have read most of the Chinese books in English, and can't tell a fucking joke.
Yes.
And so, take a guess how many Chinese novels get translated and published in English per year.
I would say like a couple of thousand a year.
And it's 20.
And it's 20?
20. Like,
why? Is it just
because
the Chinese government want to dominate the...
No. I would say it's completely the other way around. Because the Chinese have incredible numbers of Western novels. And a lot of stuff that we would think of as being stuff you couldn't publish in China is just fine. It's like you can buy 1984. It's all of that. It's like, that's not the country. That's not what it is. It's a series of conscious decisions. It's not people who don't know better. The people who don't know better are us. Because if you are a publishing company and you serve an audience and you are owned by someone who is wealthy, it is not in their interest to explain the perspectives of minorities who they oppress.
Yes.
It's like, you look at what's happening in terms of like in the Middle East at the moment. It's like these institutions are not well intentioned. They are designed to make money. And so I know people in publishing houses and they're good people and they're trying to do it, but it's like the publishing industry is mostly vanity. Like, to get a novel published, it's really about going to the right schools and talking to people and being seen as the right sort. It's a class thing. And so the only stuff that gets through is usually written in English by students who've gone overseas and culturally westernized themselves. And all the love in the world to people who do that, but they ain't writing Chinese novels. They're writing English novels to demonstrate inside that culture. And it's usually about how things were screwed up back home and they come there. It's like, because you're trying to get people to buy into you being part of the community.
Yes.
But that's nothing to do with the people in China who go, you are not part of my community.
Yes.
I am terrified of you. Because you look at the last 200, 300 years of history and Chinese people should be terrified.
Yeah, that's right.
What happened in Russia? It's like,
yes.
I'm a pacifist. I don't do violence, but...
And speaking about the translation, how is your Thai then?
Dog shit. I'm working on it.
Got it.
So Thailand, if you want to stay here, unless you've got a business visa, you're basically going to have to pay a school to teach you Thai.
Right.
They won't stay otherwise.
And that's fair.
No, I mean most Thai people have like an ethnic background in China in the last couple hundred years.
Right.
So Thailand is a machine where you turn up as a Chinese person and learn how to lie and say Thai. So and then your kids are Thai. Basically, is the deal, and that's been the history forever. I mean, the Thai language comes from near Wuhan.
Oh, right. Because
moving south, moving south, moving south. You know, like in Taiwan, you've got the people who arrived in 49,
right.
and then you've got the Southerners.
Yes.
But the Southerners have only been there 300 years because they were running away at the end of the Ming Dynasty. And the real locals don't even like them. It's like wave after, and Southeast Asia is exactly the same.
Got it.
It's like, it's a lot more culturally Chinese than it looks because they'll use a different language script so that everyone has to learn that language script and then can't read Chinese.
Got it. So you've been there for like 12 months now, you said. So
give or take, yeah.
What is the music scene like there compared to like Shanghai and Wuhan and other cities in China?
That's an amazing question. And I think the friends in Chiang Mai would be interested in that as well. It is in some ways much better and in some ways much worse. The first thing to keep in mind is that Chiang Mai is a tourist city. Like, it's not over-touristed, but it is touristy. And so there is a lot of paid work for musicians here because like the previous Thai king was a jazz musician. He played, and so people would want to play with him. So wealthy families paid to send kids over to school to learn jazz. They opened schools. There's a very high standard of musicianship. There are several great jazz venues, including classy ones and then more punky ones. And like the more punky ones, I go and sing Chinese post-punk songs in these jazz venues. It's like very open culture. It's jazz that isn't really what it was in any other country. It's a new Thai thing. I don't know how well Time Friends have realised that yet, to be honest. And then there's an indie scene, and it's, how would I put it? 100 years ago, nearly everybody in this country was a slave. Like, you know how Russia had a system of serfdom and say, you know, most places. It was pretty recent here, and a lot of people don't have a lot of confidence. They just kind of, life is about being quiet. So like a Thai play quieter than a Chinese band, just play pop. Like, they just choose a different volume, and you live your life at a different volume. So the taste in instrumentation is different, the venues are different. But what I find is if you can get Thai musicians and Chinese musicians working together, everyone goes fucking nuts.
Insane. Yes.
Like the very earliest jazz music, if you think about that, we think of it as African slaves. Africa's not a place though. Like Africa's loads of places. Right? And so you've got like a Nigerian fella and someone from like two cultures further down on the coast hanging around in some bar trying to find a thing, and when they find the thing, the energy pops. You start twitching around. They would call them spasm bands before they called them jazz bands.
Right.
Yeah, jazz is just a euphemism for sex. But at first it was twitching around. And the thing, I mean, you've seen me do like Waidiren shows. That's what it's what I like a really high energy band. When I got to Shanghai, I was pretty kind of like, as part of our scene, it's like, guys are good, but there's no one ripping it. And then I saw Fingers, and even before they started the first song, which Al Jen's just moving and doing this thing, it's just like, nuts. Oh, we found a real one, shit.
Yeah.
And then it's just, well, how do you get to that? So I looked for a long time at what they were doing. It's like, how do they relate to the crowd? And what is this speaking to? I stole a bunch of ideas from them, made friends with them, and then I moved on to a band here, and I'm doing the same thing with them now.
Yeah.
Like, being a band is like a complete art. You have to think about how you relate to people. You have to actually think about the future and like what's in the best interest of the people around you. It's kind of liberating.
And now you were saying before, like, how difficult it is to find musicians that want to stay for a long time. Now, you're in a band, Waidiren. You formed that in Shanghai? Was that in Shanghai, right?
Yeah, so that band was the third attempt I had at forming a band in Shanghai. We started off using a couple of old songs I've been carrying around for like 15 years. It was me and some Chinese friends who I've met through another friend I had met on Dole Band. Do you remember Vigilante?
Yes.
Yang's band. So
Yes.
I met Yang on Dole Band, like the Chinese IMDb.
That was really good.
Yeah, which is where a lot of Chinese bands meet.
Hmm.
And he wanted to do hard rock, and I couldn't sing the phrase "knocking me out with those American thighs." So I would just go to his gigs and drink, and then I got to know his mates, and we did some stuff. And then the guy that I started it with turned out to be a prick, and so I made friends with his friends and kicked him out. And then I am probably more serious about like doing the art as a living than I think a lot of people in the Shanghai scene are. I've been maybe more willing to like jack in my job or screw up jobs or put a load of money into it. Yeah. But it's not that hard. It's just do it. And the trick is to find other people who are willing to commit as much as you are.
Yes.
And with like Nella and Liu Di, my two Chinese bandmates who were there the longest time, it was just they believed it could be real, so it could be real. It's like, I don't know what a real Chinese band looks like, but I know two Chinese guys can imagine it. And if I just let them get to know me and work together, then we all... I think as foreigners in China, we don't, like, unless... If you live in a culture but you don't speak the language, you are always going to be less than a full person. Yes. And there are very, very few role models of people who have genuinely learned the language to the point where, like, people trust them and give them authority. How often do you see someone like that in China? It's incredibly rare. And that's dangerous. It's really... How many people do we know that have mixed race kids? Loads of people, right? Yeah. My friend who lived in Chongqing, in Beibei outside Chongqing, he and his wife are the nicest human beings you will meet. He's from Nebraska. He's a painter. And he teaches English. And she is a novelist. She was a doctor. She's a wonderful artist. And no one would talk to their child. They had to move into the city because no one would.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And at that point, like, somebody has to act as a role model. And right now, sometimes a role model has to be, you will treat our children properly.
Yeah. I totally agree.
And so when you see me on stage angry, that is, she is the nicest little kid I've ever seen. She's the most Chinese, intelligent child. And anyone who isn't encouraging their children to play with someone like that is a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
It's not in their own fucking interest to be that scared of people. I know this is what we did, our parents and grandparents and all of that. I understand where the trauma comes from. That you look at a white person and assume they're a scumbag. Like, I feel that. That's how I feel, I'll be honest. Like, in Shanghai, we meet a lot of people who do not take Chinese people seriously. Who just come and...
Yeah, that's wrong as well.
I was married to a Chinese woman from Chongqing. Chongqing is traditional as anyone in the world. We left because we got married because they were never going to let her leave otherwise. Someone was going to promise in front of his own family.
Was that the parents or the grandparents that were like really...
What does it matter?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Granny's upset, mum's upset.
Yeah.
So it doesn't... It's not the question of whether the individual is capable of it. It's whether the community is capable of supporting the individual after they do it.
Yeah, right.
So,
yes.
And all these things take time, but like you said, like the people that you meet at shows and talk, like the people who are like Fingers fans, who, like a whole contingent of them are young women who, after they saw certain stories about what a certain singer's personal life was actually like, and all the just angry stuff, have just gone around the gigs kind of angrily voicing their concerns. While the band goes round, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we can actually disagree with each other. That's all right. I think that's an incredibly healthy sign. I think that these bands getting out into the world is an incredibly healthy sign. Sometimes we focus on ourselves, and sometimes we go out into the world and we jump up and down and go, you aren't noticing us. You don't get how great we are. And that's my honest belief. It's like people are frustrated because to do well in a Chinese company is so much harder than in a Western company. There's so much more. There's so much more having to give up of yourself. So the friends I know who can do that are so much more able than friends back home. It's just they need to, if you face the world as it is, then you can change it pretty fast.
Yeah, that's the one thing I like about that indie scene as well. You're seeing more and more Chinese people come and watch you play, and it's a release for some of them. found something that they can, that's not just for Chinese people, but I'm seeing more Chinese people come and go, wow, I've never heard this sort of style of music. I love it. It's a release for me.
We create spaces. That's what we do as musicians, really. We create a space and then introduce a series of concepts and how we relate to them emotionally. And the audience see the person standing next to them cry.
Yeah.
Or try not to cry, or just, and then they realised that they weren't alone the whole time. It was just that everyone was trying not to bother them. The number of times at Chinese gigs where like random strangers have hugged me.
Yeah.
In Shanghai, who will never fucking do that in a million years, right?
Yeah.
It was the only place, and so it was the only place where it's like, I feel like my understanding of this country actually matches the reality, because as a musician, you reflect the world emotionally. You don't reflect it in terms of written facts. And so I just tried to take up that and do that, yeah.
To switch topics, like talking about your music in general, I've seen you quite a few times now in different venues, and it's always intense. It's always, these guys are legit. There's no bullshit. There's no half-assing it. That's what I like about your band. You get up there and give it 110% every time you play.
Our technical ability. We always aim. I don't necessarily tell everyone in the band this, but I do always aim to be doing something about 10% past our competence level, because I feel like the thing that we don't get to see in day-to-day life is people stretching themselves to the absolute limit to try and achieve something. And it can be something pointless, like a guitar solo, or just a level of particular emotional intensity. Like shouting for fingers, but bang himself on the chest while he's singing. It's just like, I'm trying to show you how much this matters. Because the more I can do that, the more of my feelings that have built up come out into the room. And the other thing I found is that when when you do that, everyone feels better afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I started doing this by getting drunk at home and singing. And then it's like, oh, I actually like singing. I bet it. And I found the more people I did it in front of, the better it felt. So that's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a really, really good vibe.
Hold on, before we do that, I want to briefly shout out Craig's bands, because Jen's Curfew's sick and Full Throttle. I think people misunderstand Full Throttle. I think that Josh is a very, very talented person. He makes everyone in that space feel welcome. He is a wonderfully sweet man. Yes, okay, he maybe doesn't know the difference between a major and a minor chord.
Yes, that's true.
Josh teaches everyone who sees him that you don't need to give a fuck.
That's right.
That it doesn't fucking matter. And for that, because he was like the first person wanting to make music with me when I got to Shanghai, because he doesn't give a fuck. And God almighty, does Shanghai need more people to not give a fuck. So all the love in the world for Josh, and Jen and Chris and those people are absolute fucking troopers. So you were saying about my lot.
You said that you're playing music that you've had for 15 years, so what is the new style of music? What sort of direction are you going in terms of for your band? And now that you've moved to Thailand, has that changed the way that you're writing music now?
Absolutely. I would always tell you that I am a person that can't write a song on his own. It's not really true, but that was how I always conceived myself. I always want someone there with a can or something.
That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
So like Wake Up in Pudong, which is one of my favourite songs that I've written, I wrote with Nella, our guitarist. And literally it was like he had a riff and then I figured out another riff. And then it was like, what's the stupidest, dirtiest story we could tell? Like, because we were like looking at the mechanics of what a song is. And it's like all songs are about sex that you probably shouldn't be having or you know, and feeling bad about that. You just kind of put the bands you like. And so we were doing that. But since I got here, like I'm a bit of a black swan in the music scene here as the white guy that sings in Chinese and it's not Joe. Like it's actually his cultural identity. Basically, the past year has been a load of Thai people going, we'll probably play with you in like a year when we figured out what it means that you're a white Chinese guy. So I've just been doing a lot of solo shows and sitting and jamming with people. I have, for these shows with Fingers, built a reconfigured version of the band with some Thai friends because what I am trying to do, we've got Solitude is Bliss, who are like the Dirty Fingers of Chiang Mai. in terms of them being the one band, the people who linchpin the scene, because these scenes are always linchpinned by like 5 people. And they are playing with fingers, and certainly my hope would be that both sides will then be touring each other's countries on a regular basis, because they're both wonderful. But for me, that then is, well, this is a show in Chiang Mai, and I'm going to be a musician here for years to come, so who do I want to work with? Because Liudi couldn't make it out. He's working in a startup. He's far too talented. So he's done our T-shirt design. He's done all of that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he's a wonderful designer. He's a really talented dude. Josh is coming out, so he will beat everyone in the shape, hopefully, because he's a much better musician than I am.
Wow.
And then they'll do some shows as MuMuMu as well. And, you know, it's always makes me happy. And then, I bring 2 Thai friends and a Shanghainese friend who I met out here, who used to play in a nu metal band and played to like thousands and thousands. Oh, the first time he got on the drums after a few years, it was like a bomb going off. It was great.
And that's how you also got involved with the Shrine as well, right? So you go to your WeChat and you've got some live videos as well of recordings.
So the Shrine thing is, I don't know how many people I don't know how well we talk about the Shrine, because the Shrine is a co-op that was started by a band called Dezang. How many times have you seen Dezang?
Yes.
They're a wonderful band, really. But more than that, every band that I know has like a WeChat group for their band. Dezang chose to do something else and make a group for their co-op, which would cover their practice space and then invite their friends in. So it started with Ang Corporation, because those guys have known each other forever. Then they ran into me at a Gmail show when I was very drunk and needed somewhere to stay and have some friends, because I was working with Chinese. Because with Waidiren, it was that everybody else is Chinese. It's like you still have like the internal brain of a like confused white dude who's ended up in Shanghai. So it was nice to suddenly have collaborators to kind of imagine what my project is. Damien particularly is one of the kindest human beings you'll ever meet, and an artistic mentor to a lot of people, like a really important dude. You should get him on. Seriously, you should be interviewing him more than me. And then more bands have come in. I think there's about 8 now, 3 practice spaces, and the hope is to do like a KEXP thing where there's like videos going out on a regular basis filmed in space. That was done by a team of Josh Klimakar, guitarist, with Josh Stanley, videographer, clearly the sound guy, and who sounds so many people. He's wonderful. And Damien helped out with that too. We did that for free. Nobody paid anybody. I know bands are doing a paid one. It really just depends on who's available and when. We just want to demonstrate that you don't need to run everything as a business.
Yeah.
You can and help each other out. Like you learn how to do this and I'll learn how to do that. And I trust that when I need you, I can give you a shout. Like you specialising in doing this podcast is somebody needed to be doing this. Like you have a listenership. Shanghai's media landscape is terrifying.
Yeah.
Baffling. Like we don't talk to each other. And
Yeah.
people are nice. And there's a nice scene. And it's not like it's a government thing. It really isn't, because our scene is a positive one, right? It's like we're going out and making music. No one cares about that. Yeah, there's laws and being in a different country and different cultural norms. It's not that there's any opposition to people doing shows. That's not what it is. And I hope people know that, because certainly I didn't for a long time. I was like, you bastards, I hate you. Why are you doing this? All I'm trying to do is help. You arsehole.
Yeah.
And if you go, on an individual person-to-person basis, are these people actually being intentionally unpleasant to you? Or are they just seeing the world through the eyes that they were given? If you continue to just be honest with them, will they be all right with you? And what I have found is almost every time, with the exception of tossers, and there's about the same number in China as in the UK, people are good. People are nice. If you want to do the thing, make sure that it fits what the people in the audience want, because otherwise you're a crap band anyway.
That's right.
Well, what's great with music, I think, is it means that you can't really pretend, because who you are shows in your music. Like if you were who will make music in a selfish way. You'll be the guy whose solo is too long or plays in the band that no one actually likes because no one has the heart to tell them because they seem like they need it, but it's not really a band, it's just kind of masturbatory. And, these bands exist. And you know what? I'm happy those bands exist because whoever's doing that needs that. But I think if you're doing something, you should think about why you're doing it. And that means that as a performer, your audience is you. Like, what you do is really narrating your relationship with them. Like, because you sing differently in a different room. You sing differently to different people. You will sing very differently to a woman you love than to your mother. It's like...
Yeah, that's right.
I hope so, Craig. I really hope so. But,
born in
Macclesfield.
Macclesfield.
Where divisions Ian Curtis and Stephen Morris are from. It's a mill town outside Manchester, like 15 miles. You can do it in the car in an hour, and most people might go in once a year.
Right. So growing up, was your mum and dad involved in music or entertainment of that sort?
My dad was musical before the phase of his life that I was in, because he had then moved up north. He was from London, some family in Ireland, some probably Dutch, I'm not really sure. He had played mandolin and stuff in pubs and that kind of thing and been into music, but he'd packed it in, and then he was sick from when I was about 7 years old, so he just wasn't well to do that. Mum used to ring church bells. Used to ring the bells at the church. I suppose that's music.
Yeah? Keeping the rhythm?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're beautiful sounds. I mean, it is music. I mean, I say that sarcastically, but like, I think about this a lot in Chiang Mai because with the jazz music and the indie music, it's like one is like officially approved music and one is like, screw you, I'm doing this anyway.
Yes.
And church bells really are the most kind of approved music, and playing the mandolin down the pub, it really is more screw you, I'm doing this anyway. So
yes,
I've learned something about my parents, actually.
Mm-hmm. For you as well, your major was in
Computer
IT
science.
as well. Computer science, right?
Computer science, yeah.
But did that stop you from doing your arts?
Oh, definitely. What I was going to say was, when you chose your degree, did you feel like you chose it, or were your parents kind of like stamping on your foot pretty hard?
My dad is in IT, so that's why I chose it as well.
The words, if you go and you're doing a science, were never said out loud. But that was because they didn't need to be. Both of my parents had come from like backgrounds where the fact that they had gone to university on day release and done a full degree in the normal amount of time while holding down an almost full-time job meant that they saw it as, this is a terrible investment unless
you have to do it.
Available. I would have liked to have done Chinese or English literature, but by the time I realised my mental health wasn't up to actually doing the computer science, I was too far in, so I just finished it. I didn't get great grades because I was doing like arts and music the whole time, but I don't.
That was your release, right?
You can look at it like a release, but it ends up feeling a bit passive if you look at it that way. It's more about you have an awareness of the world that means that you aren't comfortable, and traditional means aren't going to get you to feel better.
Got it.
To invent the means. But that could be creating a room where this person, and this person now are mates instead of hating each other. I've had some stuff in my personal life just recently, and just because you've fallen out with someone doesn't mean someone else has fallen out with them. And then it's like, well, what do you do with that? Well, one thing you can do is engineer a situation so you all get to the point where it's like, screw it, who cares? So I feel like a lot of art is trying to help mentally people do that on some level. It's about reimagining ourselves in a way that allows us to move forward together rather than in opposition to each other. It's shared act. So my problem was, it was like, I could go and get a job and work for a company, but we'd invaded Iraq when I was 15, and I was like, this isn't going to get better. And the more history I read, particularly Chinese history, it's like, this is not going to get better. This is not what systems do. And that's the case. I always wanted to be a writer from when I was like 6 years old. And the thing I had in my head after I graduated was, I don't want to read another book by a white man who doesn't speak a foreign language. Period. The end. No interest in that. It's just, I wouldn't respect the publisher that published me.
Got it.
Like, it's not that there isn't a universal experience just among even you and me. like the difference between us. But some people have been systematically excluded for, particularly women, an incredibly long time. And so my thing became, I feel like at some point I will trust my own voice to start speaking again, like I'm doing today. But today I feel like I'm speaking for, as someone who's involved in the Shrine, as a friend of some of the performers who are coming out here. I'm speaking for my friends here. I am doing this because I want to knit everybody together. As far as my own personal stuff, it's just like I have the same story that all lead singers and comedians have, which is one of my parents was sick. And you learn to make people feel comfortable because you don't have another choice.
The Edinburgh Festival and going to university.
The Edinburgh Festival is the largest arts festival in the history of the world. Like, in a day you get 2,500 performances in 250 venues and every kind of show you can think of. What friends in Chiang Mai are talking about is like over the next 20, 30 years, trying to slowly just build up that kind of approach so that every August people will come out here and rather than going, someone invite me to do a show, they'll go, I will buy a plane ticket and I'll find the venue and I'll come out and do it because everyone is waiting to be told by someone that they should do something. And the thing is, that's not how it works. If you want to be really good at something, you actually have to have self-belief. And there is no international market for Chinese media because the only stuff you will see in Western media about China is either cutesy stuff or fear the dirty commies. And it's just like, it's not in anyone's business interest to help you take gigs from Thai people. You come and you play gigs and it looks like you're taking gigs from Thai people, they're not going to let you back. They're not stupid. You come and you make a better gig than would have happened here. Otherwise, the Thai people can play with you, learn from you, you can learn from them, everybody grows. Great, we've made something. But I do get bands reaching out to me going, it's like, so will people pay for your flights? It's like, I don't know how to pay for my rent. People I want to be clear about that. Like, some of us who are involved in this are very dedicated and will support each other. But we do need more art in the scene. If you have disposable income, maybe spend it on a plane ticket instead of a PS4.
Yeah.
Buy a guitar instead. Like, buy something where games are really dangerous. I love games. I worked in games. But the energy you put into them often doesn't come back out. If you put that into an instrument, you've changed the world forever. Every time you play, that time you put into it collapses back into you. And people see your dedication. You don't get that with games. So,
what does that festival mean to you? I mean, how were you a part of it?
I did everything at one point.
Yeah.
I started out like just volunteering in a space, doing sound and lights stuff, then produced, directed, acted, and it was that. It was actually directing and acting and realizing that neither person actually knows what's going on in that relationship. Right? That what's really happening is a bizarre kind of semi-seduction by the director of everyone in the cast.
The blind leading the blind.
Well, no, because it's an emotional thing. So it's like you were trying to knit this cast together so they relate to each other emotionally, but some of them need to hate each other. That's what they're doing on stage. So you need to embody that hate that they have for each other, but the actual real love that you have as actors. And it's like nursing or something. It's like an emotional skill that you learn over time. And I see a lot of Shanghai bands, and it's like 5 people who will go to practice and pay 10,000 kwai for a guitar, but won't talk to anybody about disagreements about taste. Or it's like, oh no, I might be wrong about something. It's like, good, be wrong, you'll be better afterwards.
Yes.
Rather than kind of worrying that Shanghai, there's a word in Chinese, zhuangbi, like niubi, which means a very rude body part of cow, which means something is very... Zhuangbi is pretending you are... It's like, in English you'd say pretending you're the dog's bollocks. Like, pretending you're hot shit. And what it really means is never acknowledging anything that might not be cool. And the problem is that then, everyone seems boring. So everyone you meet in Shanghai does seem a bit vapid. It's an act. People are much more interesting. If you were willing to be like a bit of a spaz, a bit of a weirdo, and just share of yourself, as you and I do, people give it back to you in spades. They just don't know you're supposed to do that. It's just a learning thing.
So when you finished uni, you were saying that you had to find a job, and you're saying, was it a little difficult to find a job at the start?
It was too bad. I wasn't looking very hard. I was just...
Yeah.
Like, I worked for Amazon for a bit and got fired because I was just not willing to be that. And then I wanted to be a writer, and there was just no way to do that. And eventually you end up working for your friend's family's double glazing business.
Yeah, the glazing business. Yeah.
Fixing a main computer that they bought in the 70s. The reason they didn't replace it was they were worried the sales guys would steal all of the files otherwise and then go to glazing firms. And the reason they were worried about this was because one of them did. And it was just, I didn't want to do that. So I'd done a year of Chinese lit, and then there was a breakup. It's usually a breakup. I mean, I don't know many people in China who the real reason isn't someone broke their heart. It's just, I don't want to be here right now.
So that was the reason for China?
Do you know the reason why you do anything? I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's like, I know what I said to people at the time, but the actual reason you do something is like multivariate. It's a whole bunch. It felt like that was a story from my life that meant something, and staying in the UK wasn't. That was the reality of it.
Like an adventure? Like
yeah.
You know, start again?
Am I sad that I've got to the point where, like, me and certain members of Dirty Figures are, like, riding motorbikes over Phuket and, like, organising plans for the future and that sort of... No, like, life is good. I've met some of the most wonderful people. It's totally annoying. Like, I don't want people to think that, like, going out and doing something difficult is easy. That's the opposite of what it is. What it is usually mental pain every day going, it can't be like this. And it's like, no, it is like this. And the sooner you accept it's like this, you can fix the next thing and then be annoyed about that.
Yeah. And what were your first reactions of moving to China?
I got off the plane and didn't have a SIM card, so I had to work out how to use a payphone in Xi'an. And then I had to get an hour into the city where I got picked up by like a hipster-looking lad, and we got chased by two guys on scooters round the drums house at Xi'an. And they were shouting at him. I think they were just trying to get him to pay to use them as a taxi. But all he would say to me in English is, "They are bad men. They are bad men."
Right.
Wait for hours. Then we get in a cab with one of those metal grills that looks like it's so that you can't beat up the driver. Then they drive me and put me on a bus for 3 hours, and I end up on a bus and hearing... There's a famous Sway Jen song I end up here. Yeah, it was a fucking weird experience. It was really strange. Because I'd gone, like, to bumfuck nowhere as well, intentionally. Like, I love Ankang, the city that I went to, but I was going somewhere where there wouldn't be a lot of white people.
Was it easy for you to find a job there? Is that the reason why you went out to...
In that era, anyone could get a job teaching English you wanted to. I had the 120-hour TEFL teaching certificate, which was one.
Oh, there you go.
And then an online course. I did it for 6 months. The school was a total scam. It was like, if the kid couldn't speak, they would get 15 out of 20 on the speaking test so that they would come back next time. And the two other teachers there were American, by which I mean one was from Ghana and one.
You went back to England?
Yeah, because I decided that I felt guilty not like relating to the kids like that, and just it wasn't the right space. So I went back and teacher. At that point, I work in London, and I'm from a very white town. This was like the first time I had been around like black British people or a lot of British Pakistani people, Somalis, that kind of thing. And it completely changed who I am. And at that point, it's like, I can't go home now. It's just... It's a bubble. I'm glad that bubble exists for my mother and for people of her generation, because it's like, you're old and obviously I want everyone to be comfortable. But stuff like the BBC and all of that is very much like a shielding system so that all of them can ignore the fact that we have turned London into... I mean, for migrant workers and that kind of thing, is... I've lived in squats where we were finding like Romanian fellas under bridges and shit. It was like...
So you come back to Shanghai to China for a second time?
Yep. I came back in March, February, March, yeah. Just for a quick talk.
And you said before that it was a no-brainer to come back because you'd been in England for that period. Then you got another teaching job again. Was that satisfying for you?
I moved around for like the next 8 years. Like,
right.
Chongqing for a long time, and I love Chongqing, southwestern China. Amazing place, wonderful food, great people, totally. So when I come to Shanghai afterwards, I go to Shenzhen and then Shanghai, I get on better with southwestern people than I do with Shanghai people. Because, and they're finding Shanghai people frustrating because it's like, no, I need a place here too. And so I had a lot more empathy for them. My band name is what they are, Waidiren, people who are not from here. It's a word, and it got banned on the internet for a while because Shanghainese people were using it to be rude about people. At that point, they would abbreviate it to WDR or WD, and then weirdly to the Chinese word for hard drive, because people got so confused they thought it meant less. So for a long time, people like my friends were referred to as hard drives.
Right.
Do you think at the point that you started referring to somebody as an object that there might be something about the way you relate to the world that might be problematic?
Yes.
Yeah.
You also told me about mental health, and
Oh,
I've had a couple of people that have been on here that also have the mental health issues. So obviously music is helping you to get past that.
I don't know about other people, but I feel like a lot of my mental health issues have been cognitive dissonance. I think I saw this really corny video with Jim Carrey once where he was talking about how depression means you need deep rest because you're depressed, which is very corny, but he is right. Because what depression usually is that the role you're performing in society does not fulfill your needs. So you are permanently drained in some way.
Yes.
And what it's telling you is lie down, allow your brain to clear. Your subconscious will, if you relax, find a better way to relate to this situation. It might be you give up on something. It might just be that you see things differently and you go, oh, I can do it in that order. Most people who are involved in music have these needs that are not being met, which will present as mental health issues. And it could be like, with the Shanghai thing, it's like knowing some foreign friends who you know are good people, but are disconnected. And then some Chinese friends who are, maybe some Chinese middle-class friends who are like, say, I don't know, insufficiently nice to delivery drivers or something like that. And then it's like, but like my bandmate drove delivery. Like the most Shanghainese people are not like friends with someone from Alhoi who's doing that. It's like they don't speak the same language. Most delivery drivers barely speak Mandarin. Like a lot. Like I know a lot of them learn and respect a lot to the people that do. I'm not dismissing that, but you will get people who call you and it's like a Subei dialect or something. And like, more fucking power to you coming down from Subei to do that. But it's like, Shanghainese people are not going, that's who I want for my daughter. And if you walk around and you care about people like that, and you also care about the people who are saying, that's not what I want for my daughter, you have that permanent tension of, how do I love everyone? And I think a lot of the mental health stuff comes from that. That's why people in minority backgrounds, where it's just like, I get why this system is crap to me, but this system is crap to me. What can I do? That's been my experience of it with fans and stuff as well. I've had some younger people talk to me who are dealing with stuff, and I know Fingers Boys have talked to people too. It's like people see you working through your stuff, and they think that maybe you can help them. But the only thing you can ever do is like point them in the direction of working through their own stuff. And
that's right. Help yourself. Yeah.
Because you're the only one who can smell it. You're the only one who has your neurochemistry. You're the only one there who is going to be able to get to a point where it goes, it feels all right.
And more recently, you're now doing voiceovers and
not really
translation.
I used to direct them when I worked in Shanghai. We would work with like people and that kind of thing. That was fun. We might settle to do that here. Right now, I'm doing translation of subtitles for some films. And there's some really white people in Shanghai go to the cinema and watch Chinese films. They're actually a lot more interesting than you think. A lot of the time, there's content in there that doesn't get talked about in the Western media. Because as a film director, if your slightly controversial film gets talked about in the Western media, you don't have a next film. If it gets talked about by Chinese people who like it and give you money, and all you white people don't know about it, that's what Chinese directors think of as winning.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
As a musician, the one that a friend of mine here who has been really important to me said is, when you're singing, and it took us a while to get the exact wording for this, when you're singing, you are singing only for yourself. You have to acknowledge that you are on stage and singing for the audience, but as a performer, be it an instrumentalist or anyone, the person supposed to be enjoying the show is you. If you're enjoying yourself playing, no one else will.
Yeah, that's...
You will get that lift,
true.
that power where it comes over you, if you're doing it for you. Because you physically are a person in a room with other people. Your subconscious will carry all of what the audience need. If you try and think about it consciously, separate them from you, you're actually blocking that. You have to let go. That's the that I think helped me the most.
Okay. And we're getting to the cliche questions, but what's the future hold for Will?
God only knows. Touring, hopefully, helping some bands record records out here. Driving up into the mountains, sitting, having a smoke, playing guitar for about a year. This year has been
What bands are going to come out there? Have you got any? Can you name some, or is that just?
By the time this has gone out, the Dirty Fingers tour will have been announced, which is why I'm in this mood and when I do this, because we're playing for the first time, so I'm a little excited. And that venue can hold 1,000. I will tell you, Shanghai people, it's free. We are doing free Dirty Fingers shows. They are no money. So for the price of tickets for those in Shanghai, which you would have all paid for, you can get a plane ticket out here. You can get a room in a hotel with a pool for about 100 kwai.
Very cheap.
You can hang, and then we'll have an audience, and I won't have to worry. No, this is the idea. We're trying to set it up so that groups of people can come out from China and go to an event where they will be introduced to music from the outside world in the context of also supporting Chinese art. Because it's everything mutually intelligible. I want every Chinese friend who wants Chinese art to get out into the world to understand that that will happen no more than you get out into the world and listen to other people. No one who you aren't willing to listen to should listen to you. Trash Panda, Jack and Iñaki.
Oh, they're down there, are they?
They are hosting Dirty Fingers.
Oh, come on.
They're hosting Fingers.
That's amazing.
Not giving up. I want people to understand that. We have been scattered out a bit, but I know of people who are out in Boston, who are out elsewhere. It's like, okay, fine. If we're going to be out here with this culture, then we will find ways. I have a Mongolian friend here who has been running a Chinese language open mic for 7 years.
Wow.
Because he moved to China when he was like 7, 8 years old. He learned to sing in Chinese. He's moved here. If he doesn't sing, that will go away. And so he doesn't really feel like singing, but he does the shows anyway. And in the process, he made a space for me to grow. And now I make a space for someone else to grow, and they make space for someone else to grow. But it requires giving of yourself selflessly. It requires believing that the scene and that the culture is actually more important than your own happiness. Because every time I did well in Shanghai, it was because I decided that I wasn't getting anywhere, so I needed to do something useful for everybody else. Like when Rachel left and we had to keep chaos going or something like that. It was just, if you are the person that steps up, people will help you.
Totally agree. First one's music. So your top 3 favorite artists of all time as of today?
John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats. She's a songwriter. I'm going to say my art, like what is the biggest influence? It's John Darnielle, Sui Jian, the Chinese singer, and then probably Los Campesinos, which is a British kind of emo band in disguise, essentially. So I would check them out. They're wonderful. They're a lot of what I do with Waidiren is like a shrunk down version of what they do.
And Chinese bands, your top 3.
It'll be uncomfortable if I don't say Fingers. I'm going to say Fingers. Mine, obviously, and then who's the other one? High Person.
There you go. And your top 3 albums of all time?
That's a good one. Tallahassee by the Mountain Goat, Amin by Jolly Yanran, who are a wonderful band who sing in Hacker. They were on Big Band. That's where I found them. Separation Sunday by the Hold Steady.
But no, actually, what was the first album you ever bought?
First album I bought, I can't remember. The first 2 singles were Daft Punk's Digital Love. Nice.
Oh, nice.
Top Load of Dancing in the Moonlight. Less good, but
okay.
It's like a tune. It's better. So.
And what was the last album?
Last album that I bought.
Or streamed or downloaded.
Last album I'm really obsessed with was by a local band here. The lead singer is a friend of mine. And he's a singer of Solitude is Bliss who will be performing with Dirty Fingers. His solo project is called View from the Bus Tour. Like the view out the window from the bus tour. They have one album. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in my life. It's just stunning.
Who's your greatest inspiration or hero and why?
I'm going to say anyone who's making music that isn't a cover. Anyone or that isn't
original music.
original in spirit. So it can be a cover, but I mean that you are emotionally getting naked in front of people on someone, because that's medicine.
But before we go there, just promote your show again.
Right, so the best way to look at it is this. From the 7th to the 14th of August, there is going to be a run of Shanghai shows in Chiang Mai. Book flights, get tickets, they're all free. Dirty Fingers will be announcing theirs, MuMuMu will be announcing, and I'll put everything out for the Waidiren account too on Instagram. This is Shanghai, I know it's blocked, but I know what you're mostly using. Waidiren _SH. For those of you that don't speak Chinese, that's WAIDIREN _SH. And yeah, we'll be sharing that out online. It'll go out in the Live to See and Music group, in the Shrine group, in Craig's group.
And how do we get in contact with you, Will?
Don't, please. I'm very bored.
Okay.
The Waidiren Instagram or the Waidiren Weibo are good places. The Xiaohongshu is mostly just me looking at pictures of cute girls, so I won't bother with that.
So true.
So there will be there will be stuff for this show on Xiaohongshu. Actually, one of the things we're really keen on is to start having it so that it's not just tourist stuff on there, so that people are like engaging with local culture directly. So we're working on that. But yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. Waidiren account on Instagram, Dirty Fingers account on Instagram, Dirty Fingers Gongjahao on WeChat. You know who we are. New fans.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Will. Really appreciate it. I love your passion. I love your passion for art, music.
I love your patience in terms of like just working on this, because like a podcast like this or your stuff with the bands, it's like it can be pretty thankless, and like not every interview is a winner. Well, not everyone is fun. Just thank you for doing this. I remember you interviewed Jack a while back, and I did.
Oh yes.
And like Jack is a G. He is the nicest dude. And you interviewed Ray as well. And like Ray is one of the hardest working people in the world. He and I will annoy each other until the day we die, because we do music in a completely different way. But no one in Shanghai is doing more work than Ray. And
he opened up his heart.
I will say this: anybody on the Chinese side of the scene who is sniffy about that needs to seriously look at their own white skin and question whether you're really being of service to your Chinese friends by othering people who have got slightly less further down the road than you. I am so proud of everybody in the scene who is like working to try and participate with Chinese people. If that includes learning a language, good. Because if you come from a country where it is expected to learn a language of you and you haven't done it in China, you need to know what that means.
Hi, I'm Nigel the Shanghai Psychic. I can tune into your loved ones in the spirit world, but I can also tune into you, tell you about your path and the choices that you need to make and need to know. I'm currently giving 30% discount on all Tell Craig Your Story listeners. Just use the code Tell Craig Your Story for 30% off your first psychic reading with me online at Nigel the Shanghai Psychic.